Hey everyone, James Huron here from Paper Dice Games, and today I wanted to ask the question, do you fudge rolls while you play a solo RPG? This is a question I see debated online every once in a while, and the answers and responses can range from, if you fudge any rolls, you're not playing the game the right way, to do whatever you want because it's your game, and guess what, you're playing solo, so it doesn't matter. I probably sit somewhere in the middle. I mean, I kind of think of it like playing a video game or a computer game on either easy or hard settings. And I think ultimately you should just do what works best for you. But I think to use and engage with some systems and mechanics better, there are certain strategies that I've come up with that may help you. So I'd be curious to hear from all of you if you fudge rolls. Now, to set the stage for this, I wanted to give an example of what fudging a roll might look like. So let's pretend that my character is a thief, a rogue. They've stolen this incredible blue jewel from the bad guy, and they're chasing down the dark streets of the city at night, being chased by the bad guys. They take a turn and they see a wall ahead of them, and they know if they can get over that wall, if they can climb it quick enough, they will be able to escape the bad guys. However, if they don't get over the wall, they will not be able to escape. The bad guys will catch them and they will be in trouble for quite a long time. Now, before I make this roll, I might be thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I have so many good ideas about what's going to happen after my character escapes with this blue jewel. I imagine the bad guys will be super angry. They'll start hiring assassins, and then my character is going to have to fight off assassins for the next big story arc of what I'm playing. And so I get really excited about trying to get over this wall. So I check it, the wall is a dice check of 12 to get over. I look at my character sheet, they don't get any bonuses. So on a d20, I need to roll a 12 or higher to succeed and get to this really fun part of the story I'm excited about. So I roll the dice, and it's a 10. What do? Do I fudge the roll and say something like, well, actually they get a +2 bonus because they have climbed this wall before they were aware of the shortcut, so it should be a little bit easier for them in the dark, and that way I can fudge the roll and get them over the wall and get to the story part I'm excited about? Or do I do something like, well, they didn't make it over, so now they're captured by the bad guys have the blue jewel back, and now my character is going to have to play Prison Break for the next large story arc. That's different than the direction that I wanted to go, but it could be fun still. What do? The answer, of course, for me is a little bit of both. I have fudged rolls in the past. In fact, I fudge rolls, I don't want to say frequently, but often enough. And it's something that I really try and measure against my goal for the game. If I'm playing a game and I'm trying to get to a specific story arc or specific story moment, sometimes games can easily get derailed by things like random monster encounters. Any random list really can have a lot of crazy things on it, and it happens frequently enough for me where I have a small encounter in between what my character's doing now and this goal I'm really excited about getting to, and this small encounter somehow gets out of control because of random tables or things that are happening, and now all of a sudden I have campaign shifting events happening, all from this small encounter. And sometimes it's really fun when you're playing a solo RPG, but other times if I have a very specific thing I'm trying to do, I might just fudge a few rolls to get past that moment so that I can get back on track to the thing that I was excited about and avoid the thing that randomly happened because of a random encounter table or something like that. Now, more often though, instead of fudging rolls, what I will do is I will fudge outcomes. And so what I mean by this is, let's go back to my example of my character running down the street trying to climb the wall. So they're running down the street, they got the blue jewel, they're trying to climb over this wall, and I roll and I fail. Now, the obvious outcome of that is that the bad guys catch up and the bad guys capture my character. But I know I don't want to do that. I want my character to escape with the blue jewel because it sets up this really fun story I've been thinking about. So instead of having the bad guys come around the corner at that instant, what happens is my character tries to climb the wall, they fall down, they can't, but then a nearby door opens and they hear a voice that says, "Hey, get in here." Now my character doesn't know who the voice is coming from. They don't know what's behind the door, but they know that if they don't go through that doorway, the bad guys will catch them, and so they really have no choice. So my character bolts inside the door, they escape the bad guys, I get to do the story that I wanted, but now they have to deal with whoever was on the other side of that doorway, and it's probably not going to be good. And this is a tactic that I use quite frequently when I'm playing solo RPGs. As I realize that somehow my ideas or my game mechanics have somehow backed me into a corner that I'm not really excited about exploring anymore as from a story perspective. And so I will change the outcomes to kind of get the story back on track but still respect the dice rolls and some of the negative consequences that happened leading me into that point. So those are the two main ways where I do fudge rolls. If I have a specific story thing I'm trying to get to, I make sure I get there even if the story may become derailed by some random stuff. But more often than not, if I'm going to fudge anything, it's going to be an outcome and not a roll, so that the story can continue, but the negative consequences of a bad dice roll can still be felt. Now, I also don't fudge rolls. There's plenty of times when I make a bad roll, something crazy happens, and I shrug my shoulders and I just say, oh well, that's the way it is. I mentioned earlier that I like fudging outcomes. Now, my next level up is setting up story events and outcomes for dice rolls ahead of time that don't involve story and plot points that I don't want to experience. So going back to my example for my thief in the street carrying the jewel at night trying to get away from the bad guys, one of the things that I'm trying to get better at is instead of saying, if I fail this dice roll, then the bad guys come, and then of course when I fail the dice roll I have to come up with a better outcome. Instead I might say, okay, I recognize that failing this dice roll is possible, and I'm not excited about the obvious outcome of a failed dice roll. So what I do before I make the roll is I try and come up with a good outcome that is exciting for me from a story perspective. So instead of maybe doing the whole thing where the bad guys catch up to me, maybe if I say beforehand, if I fail this climbing roll, it's not the bad guys that turn the corner first, but the town guard. And if that happens, my character has still escaped with the blue jewel. The bad guy does not have the blue jewel, but they are in a prison break scenario, and now they have to get out and reclaim their blue jewel before the bad guys or the bad guys' assassins can get them. And maybe that's a more fun outcome than having the bad guy turn up. And of course, if I succeed on the roll, then my character is able to escape completely scot-free. And so that's something I'm getting a lot better at. I'm getting better at predetermining outcomes that are still exciting and still drive the story forward towards a direction I want it to go, as opposed to either fudging rolls on the other side of the roll or fudging outcomes because the roll ended up not going the direction that I wanted. Now, the last way, and maybe most important for me way that I don't fudge rolls, is sometimes I just let them go, and oftentimes they end campaigns. There have been 2 campaigns recently that have ended prematurely, very prematurely, and I ended up shaking my hands and just saying, you know what, that's the way to the dice roll, and moving on with my life. The first was a Traveler game. This was a solo. I call it Homeward Bound. Basically, I had a character who had a military career. They got out of the military career. They were something like 30 jumps from home, and their whole job was to find a ship, get on the ship, start finding odd jobs, and work their way back home, and hopefully arrive at home with a second job and a ship fully paid off, or at least partially paid off, something like that. They ran into economic hardship the second time I sat down and ended up in jail somewhere, and I said, you know what, I don't see any feasible way my character is getting out of this. They're just going to be in jail for a while. So I washed my hands of that campaign. I said, okay, 2 sessions, campaign over, my character failed, and they are in jail. Another example I have is from Forbidden Lands. I think I've talked about this before in a previous video. Basically, I had 3 apprentices and like a master wizard all exploring the wilderness after this blood mist had gone away. And the master wizard was trying to explore the wilderness to find and enrich themselves with powerful artifacts. And the apprentices were mostly just trying to survive in a really challenging world. In my very first session, one of the apprentices tried to cast a spell and a demon showed up. Somehow they summoned a demon. I believe, if I'm remembering this correctly, these were in the game mechanics, so random stuff like that could happen. And I had the choice, of course. I had to say, okay, what happens when a demon shows up? Well, generally speaking, I thought to myself, demons are not super happy when they are summoned. So I said the demon was going to go after this group of people. I thought it was a small percentage chance of them to surviving, but I said it would be cool if they could. So I rolled some dice, the demon killed them all, and I said, you know what? Okay, game over. We didn't quite get that far, but it was a fun, neat little story, and the next time I pick up to play Forbidden Lands, there is going to be a completely slaughtered group of 4 magic users and a demon hopping around that part of the woods. I got to put a sticker on a map in that game, just 1 sticker, until that session was over, and I'm excited to play it sometime again because I get to go back to that world. And I think this part of this discussion around fudging rolls is often forgotten by solo gamers, that Stories, good stories, have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I think a lot of times as solo gamers, we forget about that ending part. And it's completely okay if your campaign ends earlier than you want it to, because you still had a fun beginning, you still had a fun middle, no matter how brief it was. And then you had an end to that story. And the world will still be there for you to pick up anytime you want. But that character story is over, and you can always look back on that and say, wow, I had fun, even if it didn't quite go the place you did. So let me know, what do you do with fudging rolls? Do you fudge them all the time? Are you strict? Do you say, no, I'm so disciplined, I never fudge rolls? Do you have other strategies to use so you don't have to worry about fudging rolls? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.